And actually, what I'm going to do is there's something else that I need to do on this particular file to make it a little easier to negotiate because we're going to be going in and out of the resolution of this quite a lot. I've got this resolution saved in a keyframe, but I'm going to just zoom right in. I'm going to save another one in a keyframe. I just clicked on it to save it. I could have saved it by just adding add here as well. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to need to zoom in and out a lot just to see what I'm doing. While we're at this point, actually, the other thing that I should have done right from the beginning is actually saved this system, and I'm just going to call it canvas. I'm saving it in a folder I've already made here before, and you'll see there's an image in there because we'll come to that later. Yeah, so I've just got, now I can toggle between the extreme out and in of this, although we are probably going to go out even further than that, but we'll make a new keyframe when that happens. I like to do this as we go because the keyframes are good ways of jumping around and finding where you are, and if things get altered you can always get back to where you were. Yeah, so what I was going to show you was in this little mixer tool here. This is one of the simplest of the mixers. It's just giving you an even valued mix of the two things here. And you've got a few things you can play with if you want to, the scale of the two inputs and so forth. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what the difference between the components are here by moving the add value. It's really actually showing you exactly, but you can see that the crisscross value is actually quite marked coming down. It's actually subtracting the left hand side here, so we're seeing mostly the right hand side. I can show you that another way actually. Why don't I do that? I'm just going to reset those parameters again so that I'm back to where I was. And just for the moment, one of the things you should know about Artmatic is that it will always display whatever the bottom tile is actually the route that's going to the bottom tile. So at the moment that's our bottom tile, that's what we'll see. So if I take that out, it will show the leftmost bottom tile, which is that one. But if I was to take that one out, or to add another one on the bottom of this, it will actually show me the right hand side, and I can look at what's going on there. So I'm just going to add another one of these. Okay, now I just did something else there that I should explain too. This was still at the bottom because when I added it, it really just wanted me to it just wanted to keep the tree as it was, but I want to see the right hand side. So what I've got to do is I've got to force the right hand side tile to be the lowest, and so I selected that, and I just hit the U key, which is for up, and it sent it up, which means that this is now the bottommost tile. And the reason I did that is just so I want to show you what's coming down the right hand side. You see I've taken the output of the right hand side of that tile, and that's the alpha channel. That's what the alpha channel is kind of doing here. It's actually creating this lovely crisscross weave. Okay, by itself that's what it's doing. And then when it's added to the other side of it, we'll just put that 2 in 1 out tile back in there. This is kind of adding the two together, so we're getting all of the RGB values, which is on one side, all summed together in this particular case because we're using a tile to do that, and on the other side we've got this kind of weave pattern. So I've done that so I can control how much of the weave pattern I see, because when it's all the way, when it's just the output of the alpha channel, it's too much. I don't want that much. I want to be able to control it. And so if I kind of rack this all the way down here, and probably I have a little bit of control in other ways by adding a little filter here, I can probably pull it down a bit more. Yeah, look, there we go. So I have a lot of control over what I can do. Another thing to remember here is I'm just sliding the slider. Okay, that's just normally my mouse is on the slider and I'm sliding it back and forwards. If I put down the option key while I'm doing this and slide, I get a much finer increment of motion, and this is often very desirable. It's a great thing to remember. You can see the scaling value down the bottom of the screen over here is just changing very slightly, whereas I don't have that kind of fine amount of control if I'm doing it without the Option key. So if you see me doing very fine things, that's probably what I'm doing. I'm holding down the Option key. So rather than just going all the way into what the output of the alpha channel is, I'm just going to take it to about there-ish, I think. It should allow us to see that. We can see it looks more like a weave now. It's probably a little bit too much. I might just add a little bit more back in there. That's good. I can kind of see that that's sort of a bit of a weave happening now, which I quite like. It's still, it's way not far enough out, so I'm going to actually take it even further out here. And one thing that's going to happen here, which is kind of annoying, is we're going to get this weird screen moire effect, because we're going to go so far out that the screen is having trouble displaying what we're doing. And you can see that I'm pulling up the full screen to look at it in full screen here, and the way that I'm doing that is I'm just hitting the V key, and then when I don't want it I just click and it just gets rid of it. So do that, hit the V key, it's full screen, then click and it goes back to the Artmatic canvas. You can see what's happening here. We've got this kind of interference pattern. That's just because of the way the Artmatic work screen is displaying it. It's a little bit. This can happen in very fine textures and things. It's just something you've got to kind of keep an eye on. Now, the next thing that I want to do, this is kind of nice for a crisscrossy pattern, but it's way too regular. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to add above this. I'm just going to hit the 2 key, and we're adding a component in here. And what I'm going to do is I might just use something like Perl and Random. Whoa, psychedelic. Okay, so that's kind of distorted the texture somewhat. I don't want it to do anything near that amount, so I'm going to grab the amplitude and I'm going to bring it right back almost to nothing. Let's look at it full screen. You can see now we've just got a little bit of distortion going on there where the pattern is just not quite so regular, which I kind of like. Let's just put the frequency up a bit. So I'm toggling back and forwards here just to look at it at that level. I can go right in, look at it very close, which I'm no doubt going to do a fair bit as well. So I just wanted to get away from that, really regular pattern, and that's a really beautiful sort of moire effect there. You couldn't get better than that. And the other thing that I want to do is, because I wanted to sort of add something to it to make it a little less. You can see this crisscross is kind of very regular. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in another component here, and I'll stick that in under the distortion, I think. And now I'm just going to hit the B key, and I'm making a branch. There's two ways of doing that. I can do it by just hitting the B key, or I can just add a branch here with this little clicker, and it'll just do that for me. And I think there's even another way of doing it somewhere, but I can't remember what it is. But anyway, the quickest way to do it, obviously, is to select the component you want and hit B, and you get your branch, which is great. Now, I do like to keep my trees very kind of obvious so that I can follow them if I come back to them. So I'm going to move this component over a little bit. And the way I did that was holding down the Shift key, and using the left and right arrow keys, I can move components wherever I want them to be on a horizontal plane. So I'm just moving that over there. I'm going to add another mixer, a little 2-in, 1-out mixer here. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a 3 in, because I know there's a really nice texture that I want to use. Now you see that just connected straight to the Z component at the top here again. It's a 3 input, so it just wants to automatically do that. I can just leave that alone. It doesn't really matter. There are things to consider about the Z input to a system, because Z actually takes the value of time, and so that can be influential and can change systems under certain circumstances. If you don't want that to happen, what you need to do is you need to connect it somewhere else, and I usually connect it to one of the fixed values. Now I'll just go like this and connect it to there. And the fixed values here, they're just constants, and you can put any value in there that you want, and sometimes it's useful to have control over the value you want to go in there. But just for safety's sake, it's always set at 0, and that means that nothing will happen. Nothing is going to get fed into the Z, and that's great. We don't want that in this particular case. But the reason I put this 3 in 1 out component in there is because I want to use one of these 3D textures. And again, this is a 3D texture, so it has a third dimensional component in it, but we don't care in this case. We just want to use two of the dimensions because we're working on a flat thing. And this is there's a whole bunch of little different noises here, and these are beautiful noises. I love all of these. I'm going to use the fibrous noise, and right at the moment what it's doing is it's just mixing it here in equal values, and the scale is actually, I think, probably quite large. We can't see what it's doing there very well. I kind of expected that would happen. We need to mix it in a different way, and I'm going to use use the math tool, and I probably will have to change the frequency considerably on this, I think. What I'm trying to do here is just add a little bit of unevenness across, and mix a bit of unevenness with it. And you can see already, see how the fibrous noise is doing that? That's way too dark for us there. So we may need to use, if we look in the math tools, we get a whole lot of different algorithms that we can use. And I'm just going to use one of the others. I think max might be good here. You can see that's exactly the kind of thing I'm looking to do. Okay, so I've added the fibrous noise to it, and what I'm thinking here is that I'm trying to get some idea of, what paper might look like. So you've got your weave, but you've also got this kind of fiber inside it. So let's look at it big and see what happens here. So it's sort of getting there. I mean, we can see that it's starting to look a little bit more believable as a kind of a canvas thing. There might be a different way to mix it though. I mean, what this mixer is doing, this is the math tool function. It's just a mixer, like it's 2 inputs and 1 output, so we're still carrying that one gradient output. That's just basically a black and white output. And what we want to do is when we're using one of these math mixers, it gives you a whole lot of different ways of mixing the two streams together.